On Radio 97, now resident lawyer Despina Priala of boutique law firm Priala Legal in Runaway Bay, with us every Thursday, and she has been pretty much every Thursday right through 2021. She's kept us up to date with all the various changes, and my goodness, haven't there been some changes. She brings her legal expertise by providing general advice on the latest of hot topics. Of course, having experience that spans more than 25 years in the areas of property and commercial law. She also prepares wills as part of estate planning. She does litigation in that area too, and the proverbial whole stack more. She's with us for the final time this year. Good morning, Despina.
Good morning, Wayne. Good morning, Brooke.
What an intro.
Yes, amazing intro.
I'm feeling emotional. So that's right. This is our last segment of Talking Law for 2021. We've made it through a crazy year, to say the least, in regards to law and the changes that have happened this past year. So today we're going to recap what has happened, what cases have we looked at, some shocking ones, some long-awaited ones, and we thought we'd put together some buzzwords, which I'm sure we're all sick of hearing, but they mean a lot. So obviously, first up, COVID-19.
Exactly.
The dreaded buzzword.
I've heard of
dreaded
that.
buzzword. Oh, the dreaded buzzword. And when we talked about this last week off air, and we said, okay, well, next week's the last segment, and how do we wrap up 2021? And, you know, I was racking my brain and I thought, well, it's been such a big year and so many different levels, and how do we do that for the listeners? And I suppose one way was to, you know, talk about all the buzzwords which are still circulating around us as we speak, and hopefully 2022 we might not see some of these buzzwords.
Hopefully we don't have to talk about it as much, but obviously it's changed so much. So yeah, COVID-19, pandemic, border closures, vaccine mandates. Where do we start?
Well, we could start right there. So COVID's obviously the big word for the year, as was last year. But from COVID, we've had so many other things that have flowed and stemmed from COVID, and we still have that. Some positive, perhaps some negative, depending on how you view things. But of course, COVID and the pandemic, we've seen things like border closures, border restrictions. We've seen shutdowns. We've seen words like no jab, no entry. And, you know, human prejudice, human rights, all of these things have been thrown around. Discrimination, vaccinations, lawful and reasonable directions from employers and others, public health directions and orders. It's been a big
I've heard a couple of those.
Of course. Another one which has emerged quite significantly is the social media influence, which we'll talk about a bit in this segment, and how that's impacted everybody this year. I don't think the extent of it is really known yet, but it's continuing. And look, working from home. Now that's another one that's come up, you know, and that's been something quite topical for the year. Emojipedia, which is a new word for me this year, with the emoji case that we talked about, and we'll highlight that again shortly. Cancel culture, mob rule, presumption of innocence, which is a big one that's come out this year with a lot of headlines and court cases.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have a favourite one?
Of all of those, of all of these buzzwords?
A favourite.
I don't know
There's
if I have
certainly a few that are a bit more
favourite.
shocking than others or unexpected than others. I guess that's a good question. So what buzzword, I guess, was the most unexpected for you, Despina, as a lawyer when laws came into play? So you saw a certain case. Was there something you were like, man, I didn't see that coming?
Oh, well, Emojipedia was one that I definitely did not see coming. And we have this emoji case that came out this year. It was Australia's first emoji case where the emoji now has the capacity to be defamatory. And that was extraordinary. And that was in the New South Wales District Court that we talked about earlier in the year. And that was incredible. So that was something obviously not foreseen. But then as we have advancements in technology and the use of social media is so rife, I suppose one could say, well, unexpected, but maybe not that surprising.
It makes sense.
And that's right. And we've seen so many changes and trends with the courts over the last year, which I suppose in one way undoubtedly was always going to happen. Advancements of technology, influence of social media. How do the courts deal with that? How do judges deal with that? How do we control, if we can, juries? And that's where we go into other issues that we've seen with some headlines. This presumption of innocence issue, which was a big one for 2021. And we had the cases of Christian Porter and other cases that hit the headlines. And we talked about that a lot on the show this year, and it's been something that's emerged quite significantly because of other buzzwords such as people being woke and corporations being woke and cancel culture and what does all that mean. And it really does stem, I think, from this influence of social media.
Yeah, social media. Yeah,
and it's been
100%.
quite significant. And we talked about that a lot, where the individual rights versus the rights of the many. And so many times on the show, I know I've sort of not pre-warned, but I said, look, you really do need to approach the use of social media very carefully. Very carefully. And that's really a message, I think, to come out of 2021. Because we have that other case that we talked about recently, another highlight, the Fairfax media case, where now the court, High Court case, landmark case, where it was found that a Facebook host can be liable for defamatory comments made.
A big one.
So that's a big one. And what we'll talk about in the next segment, of course, is there's going to be some bills introduced or have already been introduced at the end of the year to tackle some of these issues that have emerged this year. And whether or not it was directly from COVID or indirectly from COVID, either way they've emerged.
Yeah, 100%.
And you talked about these buzzwords that we've heard so much of in 2021, and you just ran through a list there. Do you think that it seems like some of these things have just appeared very quickly? Do you think that social media perhaps is pushing this so that we're seeing all of these terms just come basically out of nowhere very, very quickly, perhaps quicker than they used to?
I think COVID, I think everyone will agree that COVID, which was really something unforeseen in that we didn't expect it, it occurred. We had lockdowns, shutdowns, people forced to stay in their homes, outrage from people with their human rights and how could this happen, business owners being forced to shut, and we have issues of financial losses in the economy. So out of that, of course, if people are forced to stay home, what are they going to do? So naturally they're going to spend more time on social media. I know on my phone at the end of each week I have this little pop-up message that says,
I hate the pop-up message.
Yes, but it says,
I hate it.
Well,
it's awful. How many hours do you spend on yours?
See, Robin knew exactly what I was going to talk about, which is your screen time.
For this
is your
week.
screen time up or down? And I get this message and I go, oh, let's have a look. Am I spending more time on my phone or less?
And are you? Which way are you going?
Each week it's more time.
It is, but it's so true. When you're locked down, and I guess with COVID, social media is one of those platforms where you're like, I wonder who Joe Blogg in Melbourne is feeling at the moment, or my old friend 20 years ago who just moved to Paris. How's COVID there? It's such an immediate, bizarre way to find out what's going on in the world, and also a little bit dangerous in that sense, because a lot of people are now forming these ideas, or I guess morals, in terms of COVID, vaccinations, all of it due to certain news or fake news they see on social media.
Exactly. So people are using that form of social media more and more, and they're Googling things more and more, right or wrong, because they're in a situation where they maybe have nothing else to do, and they're in a forced lockdown situation, particularly in Victoria we've seen this year, which has been really terrible for Victorians. So I think COVID has definitely created a different society perhaps that's emerged, and we've seen things that have come about from COVID that we never expected. It's been an unprecedented era, and I hope next year we'll see some changes. But because of all of the unexpected, I suppose, situations that have arisen from COVID, we've seen an abundance of laws, again unprecedented. We've seen so many regulations and laws, yes, public health directions. I think when I went onto my YouTube channel to sort of see what we've done this year for today, to summarise, over 22 segments alone, more than 22 were just on COVID and things that stemmed from COVID.
22,
wow. So it was extraordinary, and I think that'll continue next year, because in the next segment, I do want to let listeners know there's really some interesting bills that are coming out. Again, potential new laws, because of what's happened, again, from COVID, lockdowns, restrictions, human rights, all of these issues that are very important to all Australians, and that's come about as well. So very interesting.
So are you saying we haven't seen the end of this yet?
I'd love
We'd
to have.
love to say that, wouldn't we?
I'd love to say that. I'd love to have a crystal ball in front of me and predict what's going on for a variety of reasons, but we don't. And we have to play it out in society the way that everybody else does. But I don't think we'll see the end of it. And I think you'll find, yes, there'll be an abundance of new laws again coming out next year, particularly dealing with online safety and the use of social media, and perhaps more human rights issues coming out as well.
And so listening to this program in 2022 will certainly be something you need to put on your to-do list.
Absolutely.
100%. Coming up next, the 2021 recap of Talking Law continues, and we'll be discussing what changes might come into effect in 2022. You're listening to Radio 97, 104.1 FM on the Gold Coast, 103.5 Northern Rivers.